Hey ho, Kermit the Grog here with another of our old podcasts. We did my old podcast, Pop Culture Talk Zone, and this one is, they're all one of my favorites. It feels very cliched to say one of my favorites, but I love this one, and I especially love this one. The full title that is too long for podcast titles is The Capitalism Took My Baby Away, Send Help.
That was before I started writing titles.
Yes.
And now they're entirely too long.
Now they're entirely very isekai. They're very light novel-y. Mine was a reference off of a Ramones song that I had learned about at the time and thought was funny. But this episode, listen to me grapple with the things that I enjoy in pop culture being controlled by giant capitalistic companies, which is, since recording that, a problem that has only gotten worse. But I do think we get to some cool and interesting and introspective places with that did make me feel better about things. So definitely get to the end. It is not just a hopeless, oh God, everything is on fire situation. Not to say that that's not part of it, but I can promise you some cooler water, some salve for those burns of the world. So without further ado, here's the intro. Pop Culture Talk Zone. Let's do it. It's the Kermit Zone with our very special guest star, you, the listener. Yay! It's time to fetch your headphones. It's time to check the mics. It's time to chat pop culture on the Kermit Zone tonight. It's time now for a shake-up. It's time to go sit tight. It's time to start recording on the Kermit Zone tonight. Why do we always come here? I guess we'll never know. It's like a kind of torture to have to tape the show. So now let's get things started.
Why don't you get things started?
It's time to get things started on the most sensational, conversational, observational, confrontational. This is what we call the Kermit Zone. Howdy, everybody. It's time for a Pop Culture Talk Zone. Yay! It's Anime Club back once again. It is me, Kermit the Grog here, bringing you another Pop Culture Talk Zone, as I said, and I'm joined by Anime Club's my friend Ben.
Hello.
And Brad, also known as Professor Isekai Sensei-Sama, but I refuse to call him Sensei, so he is Brad.
Hello.
So this week, I have a topic that has been brewing on my brain that I've been wanting to record an episode for months, if not years of, because usually when I have an episode topic, it's a question that I keep asking myself and I can't reach an answer to, and I beseech the heavens, and the heavens yell at me back in the form of my friends on a podcast. So the topic for today's episode, or at least the starting point, is how do you kind of accept out in your head that giant corporations hungry for your cash control the things that you like?
Oh, man.
And I have so many different examples and directions I can go into, but I guess from there, let's see. Does that instantly proc anything, or do you want me to pitch the first ball out?
I can tell you, this is not a plug for my other podcast, but I was going to say I do a book podcast. And
an excellent book podcast.
Thank you. But part of the workflow for that podcast is Amazon everything.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we use Amazon Kindles because it's the best way to take notes and highlight and share them. We can quickly load that up on any platform, on any PC, create a machine searchable text. So it would kind of be impossible to do the podcast without the Kindle. and I hate Amazon. I mean, I really hate Amazon. I also have an Amazon credit card, but I hate Amazon.
Yeah. It's just, that's even going further to like the product and just being like this, but like, I guess because this is Pop Culture Talk Zone, I'm trying to shrink it a little bit, but I guess it comes into products of like a store. Like Amazon isn't like a story, but like, here, the first one that's popping into my head, because I was up about it yesterday. Also, I'm very spicy today, everybody, so get ready. We watched some anime, and I had some cruel words for it. but we recently had, I guess we're in August now, right? Recently in July, we had our Pride Month Revengeance Month. And something that we wanted to record with my other buddies that we were not able to is an episode about... Ooh, wow, those clicks are really good on these new mics. Representation in things. And we watch a lot of cartoons, and it comes up a lot that creators are very LGBTQ friendly, and they're putting that stuff in their shows, and corporate is like, no. But they will use it to, like, pat themselves on the back. Disney is, like, number one on this. They will post, oh, look, this is our first openly gay character, or lesbian, or a bi, and they will try to give themselves as much ups on social media.
Hey, those two women kissed in Star Wars.
Yes, and then they were cut out of the Chinese release, as was any of the, minority characters from the movie poster. And that's something I'm trying to get to more with all this, is that, like, the creators of these things, who are kind of truly the ones responsible of these things, are the ones putting those things in there and, like, actually making a difference. And then corporate just gets to pat them on the back. And admittedly also, like, creators can make these shows because Disney is footing the bill for it. And their name is on it. So there is some level of responsibility in the process. And it's how do I go, yay, we're getting this representation. Boo, I'm going to see the money holders and the intellectual thought owners just muddy this and cut it out at the moment's notice when more money can be made. Again, usually the example is in Chinese markets, but I know there's other markets where that is problematic, where they try to remove it.
I think it's really a good idea that this particular conversation is limited to media, because, I mean, I don't think I'm going to lose any of your audience when I say, in my heart of hearts, I am a red-blooded communist. I am a progressive lefty who
Brad,
wants...
put the USSR anthem underneath this then in post.
I want everyone to be able to have a good life, and I know that there's enough resources in the world for everyone to have what they need, and like I hate the capitalistic structure of the world, and like all of that stuff. But that being said, I'm still relatively realist. Like, I understand this is the world we live in. This is the way it works. If most of us want to continue to have our lives as they exist now, then that structure has to stay in place to an extent. Yeah, maybe it can change over time, but as it is now, that's how it works. So when and the additional part of that is I very much enjoy a lot of different kinds of media. And so, you think about how do you deal with that conflict of, this is the world that I want to live in, but this is the world that I currently live in, and these are the things that I like, and they're controlled by this capitalistic structure. Yeah.
There's things problematic in their construction, but the things that are problematic are not just in the innate act of creative creation.
Right. Now, if we were to say as a whole, the entire world, not just media, let's have that conversation, then that just is so large and will run on forever.
It's too big.
Right. So when we limit it to just media and how we enjoy media, there's certain shortcuts we can use and different mental tricks that happen that allow us to sort of set aside that greater ideology and just get into that specific piece of media, live in that other fake world for a little while. And for me personally, a lot of it has to do with not thinking about it.
What a solution.
Which is sort of counter to our running theme on these podcasts, which is be more introspective and think about what you're doing more.
Well, can I ask you a question, Andrew?
Yeah.
What do you think? So Brad brings up the interesting point of not thinking about it. So when do you find yourself thinking about it? Is it the fact that there's just, you know that companies got to make money and they're not going to do anything that alienates a significant amount of the population because they're going to lose customers. That's not surprising to you. When it becomes an issue is when it devolves into just outright hypocrisy, where they're like, we were always here for the LGBT community. We're going to put a rainbow on our logo.
I mean, that's even just a small part of it. I mean, I have other examples that I'm sure I'll get to, but I feel like we can bridge from there is like the big monolith of, and a thing that I was literally grappling with earlier today is the monolith of Disney. Mm-hmm. And, probably from things that we've talked about before, if you've ever seen my podcast, that you've seen shots of my, apartment that I live in and the walls, my co-hosts can, confirm this. There's a lot of Disney art on these walls. I spent a couple of years of my life literally watching all of the mainline animated movies in order. I've seen all the Pixar ones, and obviously this was a number of years ago, but I've been to the parks a billion times. Disney owns a stake in my brain, whether I want it to or not. I forget how knowledgeable, and in moments where the information comes up, knowledgeable and particular about things in Disney, even though I tried not to too much. It's not I feel like that's not a part as much, but I know it's still there. There's stuff I care about inside that monolith. But I also know they keep doing, in various spaces, really crappy things.
Oh, yeah.
As a business, and I go, how can I every time I like something, my brain presents any number of other things of, they didn't do that, that was kind of gross, this and that. And it's the newer piece of this that I kind of said earlier, though, that I'm also trying to come to terms with, is that idea that you can separate the content creator from the content, I guess we'll say publisher or producer or whatever you want to say it.
Yeah.
And being able to cut around my dinner meal on my plate to try to just get at the part of the people who have the most responsibility for it directly and give them ups while kind of dunking on the parent for not being good.
So when you say that, this is going to tie into something that Ben and I have talked about before in relation to his podcast. Does the author's stance on certain things does that do the same thing for you? Where can
you separate the art from the artist?
Right. When you're saying that Disney owns this and Disney does bad things, but the artist who makes it is just using Disney as a platform. What if the artist itself, what if they do something really good? And I'll use the example, J.K. Rowling, with Harry Potter, where that particular work, lots of people enjoy it. It's, it's a beloved property, but she's said some messed up stuff recently. And does that mean that you have to go, okay, even though I liked this before, now that she said that, I have to not like it now? Or can you just go, I'm just not going to buy it anymore. I enjoyed it. I'm going to hold on to that enjoyment, but I'm not going to support her. Or do you just separate it completely and say she's already incredibly rich, so what does it matter?
We actually did an entire podcast on this before with my other co-host, so thanks guys for not listening to the episodes. No. But still,
I don't get that far back.
This, I kind of came to a conclusion on that because it's that's the conversation of, can you split the artist from the art? And this is can you split the artist from the machine? Because I like the artist, I like the art they're making, but it can only exist because of the monolith. And how can I come to terms with that? Because by interacting with it, I'm enabling the monolith.
Okay, so I said that we shouldn't make this a bigger conversation than media, but I think there's a good example here in that, okay, the United States of America, the government of the United States of America has done some really messed up stuff and continues to do really messed up stuff. Does that mean that we, as citizens of the United States of America, are supporting that and complicit with it?
I was about to say the government doesn't take my money, but they super do. That's kind of part of it.
Way too much of it.
Well, let me ask you this. What practical choice do you have here? Like you said, with Disney owning everything, your choice is basically consume media or don't consume media when we're dealing with a monopoly. Like if you're an artist who wants to have any kind of career and you're an animator, let's say, there's maybe, 3 employers you could work for? If you really wanted to have like a mainstream show, if you didn't want to have like an internet published thing.
Yeah.
All of them are problematic.
Yeah, and they're all going to wind up having those issues. And so in a monopolistic system where there's Disney's, there's Amazon's, you could buy your copy of Das Kapital on Amazon and Jeff Bezos isn't going to care. It's just, what would you do? Are you ready to, like, are you asking, when do you draw the line and stop consuming all Disney products?
I mean, I guess it's clearly I haven't been able to do that, but it's by enabling this or liking this, I feel like I'm also annoyed in pointing out the problematicness of the machine. Because it's like, that's the thing, is that the entire machine isn't corrupt. Because obviously there are these creators and other people in it who are there for genuine reasons that just want to make cool things and make cool experiences. But it always comes down to, and I guess this is actually a little bit what we talked about in Art v. Artist, and what you guys are getting at a little bit, is that how do I know where that line is? When do I know that my media hasn't been tainted by Big Brother Mickey? And not like, I feel like when I say it like that, it's in a very like paranoid propaganda way, but it's the frustration of, there's things that I like underneath this umbrella, and from my point of view, from the news I see, the umbrella keeps strangling the good people in it, quote unquote good people,
to an extent,
and coming to terms with that.
To an extent, I think there's a problem where we want the mainstream art kind of is a feedback loop of mainstream opinion and influencing mainstream opinion. So Disney is going to be more accepting of LGBTQ characters in markets that already accept those people, which is why they remove characters from the Chinese poster, but they're more than happy to have them in the American poster. Disney,
or on their Twitter.
Disney has no moral beliefs, but it becomes an issue then, like the free market part would be tempted to say that, well, there you go, your entertainment's just a reflection of mainstream ideology. But if you have a monopoly, nobody can compete with you, and then you can kind of just dictate mainstream ideology. And that's where you get into a little bit of the corrupting influence of Disney. Is Disney actively suppressing progressive messages, progressive characters? I know it's not quite as political as that.
No, but I think that's a good way to put it, is just like, because it is both, because it's like, obvious it is helping. A lot of their shows do have a lot of LGBTQ characters. There's a lot of progressiveness from the creators in their shows that are bankrupt by this. And I guess it's some of it is the, I as a person who has my morals want to live in a way that reflects those morals. And I like the places that I go and spend my money on to at least somewhat reflect those morals and not constantly step on them just for money. Because I guess, like, I understand sometimes it's like a company needs to make money. And it's me trying to find where that line of acceptability is of, hey, this is okay. Okay, this is too far. And being able to go, okay, this one's gross. But it's at the end of the day, it's like, this money is coming in to pay people so they can make a living wage, and they also get to make art that is then out in the world. And that's just I just have to accept that's how it goes. If somebody wants to make that, they have to be a part of they have to be an element in the machine. And, you know, like we talked about, that kind of mainstream knowledge of it, and that's just the price you pay of it, and we just have to accept that's what it is.
I think that, you know, that's something that comes up in just the general, political nature of these kind of talks, is what is any one single person responsible for and what can they do? So, like, if you say, I don't like what Disney does overall, I don't want to support them, I don't want to give them my money. If you make that moral decision for yourself and you stop purchasing from them, does literally anything happen?
No, but I don't like the answer, because the whole thing is it's that I don't think my behavior is going to change that much if I get my answer. I think it's that I need to reach some clarity to gain peace within myself, because it's like I can't escape. There are things outside of myself that means that I can't escape it. I've been to Disney World a lot with my family. They still want to go. I'm not going to go, no, I'm not going to Disney with my family because I'm upset at certain things they have done. Or like, I mean, not recently because of, quarantine stuff, but like I almost every year would go on a Disney cruise with my sister. And it's like, I don't want to stop doing that. Like, that's something that's really important to me. And I can't just go, I'm not going to do that because Disney is a monolith that makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, I can't do that. But I need to reach some sort of, I mean, like I said, that's what this podcast is about, is seeing if I can find a way to reach a peace with it that is not just being told you're like, I don't gain any comfort in going, you were so small as to be insignificant, so your behavior doesn't matter. Well, I know that's usually the answer people give in these situations. I've probably even given it to other people to tell them to not freak out about global warming, and I've literally done that to a friend of mine.
That's literally what I was getting towards.
But I want something. I want something else, I guess. I don't know.
Well, let's flip it around for a second. Let's talk about
global warming. Let's not do that. Let's not do that.
We're talking about it as consumers.
Correct.
Let's talk about it as the artist. So at a certain point, I don't know if you have a specific artist in mind, or you could probably think of more shows than I could.
I have a bunch I can think of right now is Dana Taras of Owl House.
Okay.
Literally went on a rant with this last night. We were watching the rest of season 2.
I haven't seen that one, but I have heard, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I've heard somebody say, like, Steven Universe walked so Owl House could run, or something like that.
Yes, that is a very apt statement, as someone who's kind of knowledgeable of those situations.
Yeah, so who did Steven Universe? Was that Rebecca Sugar?
Rebecca Sugar did Steven Universe, and literally was so annoyed at the company because they were going to cut the gay stuff out that she literally said, we're having a gay wedding and we're making it really plot important, so there's no way you can cut it.
And so how many little compromises did Rebecca Sugar have to make to get that on the air finally?
Because that's that is the place that I can go, change is happening begrudgingly to that. Back, I guess 2014, 2015, when Gravity Falls was coming out. The creator Alex Hirsch wanted to have like a gay couple in the background for, I think it was the episode Love God, like something small and insignificant in the background, and Disney said no, not at all.
Yeah.
And now we have other shows coming out under Disney that are like, it's a constant, like all of them are fighting really hard. And I guess when I'm viewing it like that from the artist point of view, I guess that's maybe where I get more of mine when I'm seeing them, when they're talking about on Twitter and other places of the fights and the battles to get these things on air against this giant corporate overlord going, no, we're not going to do that. Like, that's where it's hard for me to draw the line, because it's like, I want the artists to be able to make the art they make, and I don't want them to be told no on stuff that's like that. Obviously, there's a time when people who are holding the purses need to be able to go, hey, that's too much, we can't do that in like a production kind of thing. But like, this is literally just we can't put this in foreign markets, so we're not going to do it at all kind of thing.
Doesn't that come down to then an individual and what they can do, and in that particular case, what that artist is able to do?
I want to support that artist. How do I support that artist without also supporting the thing that is putting them down?
Right. So for your particular moral stance on these different issues, doesn't that mean that then you feeling more responsible for that, don't you need to then go seek out those individual artists that you know are doing something good and find other avenues with which to support them? So for example, I don't know if this is true or not, but maybe Alex Hirsch has a Patreon or some place where he's selling prints or something like that you could then go and purchase those to support him directly, to say, hey, I like what you're doing, keep doing that.
This is kind of an age-old debate, though, about selling out almost.
Go for it.
Yeah,
This is good.
Because artists, you can go the Patreon route and stay indie and keep your integrity. And a lot of people think you should do that. And I've actually seen criticisms of Steven Universe from the left that say it didn't go far enough. Why didn't they do more? Or is Rebecca Sugar a sellout for compromising on any of her morals to get this massive cartoon published? And I think I come down on the side that I think you're on, which is what she did was a gamble that paid off, and somebody would eventually have had to do. You had to compromise on a few things to get one big moment out there
that moved the bar collectively forward, because I feel like I forget sometimes how much of a bubble I live inside when it comes to specifically those things. I know in general I live in a bubble, freaking whatever, but like I forget how much just LGBTQ things just aren't just standard to most people. My parents don't know about that stuff. They have no reason to. They've never really come across it, and I forget it's not just like I forget there's a lot of things I hold in my head that you learn of like understanding and accepting people that are just second nature, common knowledge to me that just aren't out in the world yet. And you have to take those moments and remember from people making those shows. It's like, this is a battle of inches. Every time somebody kind of pushes back against it, it moves it that much further up. So it's like you said, the Rebecca Sugar did what she did, so Dana Taras and other people could do further along. Each creator, the people who want to make the art, push it further. I feel like I had something with this recently, but to your point of that whole, like, the indie versus, like, the pop artist, it's like, I think there's a certain thing to selling out that it's like you have to make those compromises, but you're still pushing the general population, that pop culture space, further along than if you hadn't done it at all. Because if you all stay in your bubbles and you don't go out from them, you haven't accomplished, like, you haven't moved anything. Not to say that your work is inconsequential, but it's like when you put it out in a wider audience, it's annoying that you're going to have to make compromises over things that shouldn't need to be compromised on, but your fight for it still moves progress forward.
Well, and that's, especially difficult for somebody like you who very much values the original and the unique, and you don't want to see the same cookie cutter cartoons over and over again. You don't want to see the next superhero movie that's just like the first superhero movie. You want them to bring original art to the table, but from the corporate side, what people like is what they've seen before. And so you need people on the inside who are willing to compromise and push the envelope a little bit. And you need the indie people who are willing to go out there and just do crazy stuff. But I think, at least it's something I've noticed in books and music and other things, when you're young, it's a lot more easy to be the rebel and the one who's insisting on indie everything all the time. And then as you grow up and you start thinking about things like health insurance, you think your artist should have those things too. You can't be a rebel forever.
Yeah.
Eventually, what we would like to see is the mainstream.
What if I told you everybody could have health insurance?
This isn't Europe, Brad. We're not going to ever have that.
No, that's a good point. I guess, okay, here's my other question from that then. Is true art making the thing that you want to make totally uncompromised, or is true art fighting the system? I guess rebellion or punk even. Is true art going off on your own direction and making your own thing, or is true art fighting the system?
I think that true art is like literally doing it on your own. And there's very, very little true art. However, I don't think that non-true art is any less valuable. It's just a different thing.
I agree with you, but I think the people who use the phrase true art think only true art is valuable. Yeah. And that's why it's true.
And I disagree with those people.
It's punk. Yeah. We'll say punk.
Yeah.
I know part of punk is like the DIY nature of it, but obviously, as we've talked about, that's not always possible.
I think it depends what you
animation's
are trying
expensive.
to do.
It's really hard to do it on a like making TV level without, a company benefactor with it. And I feel like that's the the other part of punk, and some of this may be coming from me playing Persona 5 recently, but it's like, it's that act of rebellion. And maybe that's, like, even if I have been in kind of goody two-shoes forever, like, I definitely have, like, a punk part of my brain that likes that sort of, that's the thing we talked about. Like, I don't like the cookie cutter. I don't want just, like, the samey. Like, I want something that is different, that will challenge me, that makes me think of something new, that shows me something I have not seen before, that is clearly coming from somebody personally wanting to make something great. And you can, I guess this is the question then of, am I rebelling inside the system, or am I rebelling against the system from outside of it? In which one? I guess it's like, I'm not the one that gets to make the claim which one is more powerful, because I feel like that's to Ben's point of the people who say true art is blankety blank. They're going to be specific about it. They're going to be hoity-toity about it even.
And doesn't that come down to what the individual artist wants to do? Like, what do they feel their art, the purpose of their art is? Because if, in the case of Rebecca Sugar, if the purpose of her art is to, bring a wider audience to LGBTQ things, whatever that might be, then it behooves her to get into a system like a Disney where she can reach many more people, even if she has to fight inside of that system to actually get the proper message in there. Because if she just does true art and she just puts some stuff on DeviantArt or whatever, she's not going to reach enough people.
She's going to reach the people who would already be on that wavelength.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that's the thought, is that the rebellion in the system gets it to people who would not normally see it. Because if it's outside of it, mostly the only people who are going to see it are the people who are already in tune with it.
Right.
But
they're already seeking it out.
Because these shows exist and the internet exists as a whole, as it does in a lot of parts, it's like, obviously, again, I'm in my weird little bubble, so my anecdotal evidence isn't really good as much, but like, comparative to even when I was a kid, and I believe I'm the youngest of our little trio here, like, kids are queer as hell now, and it's kind of dope.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely different than how I grew up, but it's like, it's one of those, it's like the, I did this, and not me personally, obviously, I don't want to give myself that pat on the back like my buddy Jared did on my special episode. He earned that one. But, it's like that thing. It's like, this is the spots we're not thinking about because we're jaded adults. But to somebody out there, that moment of, the gay kiss on screen will be like the life changer for them. And maybe that's what I need to look at this. My solace is that I'm approaching this like a jaded adult who isn't thinking about those small victories as meaningful as they are.
Can I know you have your zones.
Go for it.
But I have my corners. And I have my douche philosophy corner. And have you ever heard of the Buddhist concept of the middle path?
No, lay it on me.
So on one end you have hedonism. So in this case, that would be just pure mainstream pop culture. On the other side, you have asceticism, which is denying yourself everything you want, which is all indie, all the time. I only buy locally sourced, vegan, whatever. Buddhism would say both extremes are bad for you because you lose sight of the goal and become obsessed with being on the extremes. You do them like for their own sake instead of the goal.
I would actually think that all indie all the time is not asceticism, but yeah.
In this case, you're denying yourself. You'd be denying yourself Disney. You wouldn't be able to go to the theme park.
Right.
You wouldn't be able to go to the
in
cruise.
The case of Andrew, that would be true.
This is our particular example to make it more understandable and relatable in this moment.
It's your consumption that is leaving you with this, and so I would suggest the middle path of consume consciously, don't obsess over it, promote indie, but also acknowledge that gateway media needs to exist. This, to go back to the punk thing, Green Day, Linkin Park, these are bands that introduced people to punk and heavy music, and everybody hates them because they're sellouts and they're cheesy and they're corny and over the top,
showing up on TV commercials.
Yeah, but without, I'll be honest right now, without Green Day and Linkin Park, I never would have gotten into Rancid or any metal band probably. I was a new metal baby. And that's shameful to say, and there are places I would not admit to that.
Here it is on a podcast anybody could listen to.
Yeah, but I'm Ben, no last name given, so. But yeah, I think that's the path I adopt in relation to this, is that you can't throw out the mainstream. It is important, and if you don't think it is, if you think you can just say, screw the mainstream, I'm only going to pay attention to people who do exactly what I think is right all the time, you're not going to reach a lot of people.
Well, and that doesn't exist. I mean, every single person on this planet is an individual. You're never going to find a single other person that is 100% on your same wavelength all the time.
True.
I mentioned this earlier. Like, I get by this a lot by just ignoring it. And
I can't do that. My brain won't let it.
Right. And so, we need to get you to a better spot. That's the point of this conversation.
Think less, Andrew. Think less, Kermit.
But just to sort of expand on that a little bit, the attitude I take to that also stems from just sort of, the greater world in general. And the example I like to use is related to climate change and recycling. In a lot of, I don't know if I would call them ads, but like you hear a lot where people talk about, you have to consume less and you have to recycle, and we want you to use plastic straws and so on and so forth. And all of that just completely ignores the fact that something like 70% of all pollution that's being generated right now comes from like 3 companies or something. Like it's more than that. But the point being that, like, me throwing a can in the trash instead of the recycling makes so little difference that if I obsess over that, if I obsess over my recycling, the only thing that's going to happen from that is I'm going to hurt myself through it.
I agree with what you were saying, but my counter argument is that while I know, and to use actually some of your parlance from earlier, that I know that majority of the pollution, the majority of the problem is with this big company, and that my personal actions will not affect it. But the act of recycling puts my brain at some level of peace that I feel like it gives me the feeling that I am doing something.
Right. And
that
so I want to
with these other things, I don't have that. Because I know it's the whole, like those are things that make me feel like I'm having an impact, because I'm being constantly told them that I know I cannot have a proper impact on the actual source of the problem.
Right. And
so at least it gives my brain solace that I can't seek without doing that.
Right. And I want to be clear here, because I may have sounded a little too defeatist there, but the point I'm getting to is that the obsession is the problem.
Yes.
There's nothing about the act of, I recycle. I have a recycling can at my house. We put all of our cans in the recycling. We put cardboard boxes. I do things that I know, I have the knowledge are making no difference at all, but I do them anyway because they're not negatively affecting me at all. And, possibly, I mean, it doesn't quite work that way for me because I have the knowledge of it, but like possibly it makes me feel better to recycle, even if I know that it doesn't do anything. So I think that the key there, and in your media consumption, is doing what makes you feel better, but not to the detriment of your own mental health in that.
Well, that's the essence of...
That's the middle path.
That's the middle path, is you recycle because it improves your relationship with nature. It doesn't matter that it's a drop in the bucket. It matters that it's a ritual that you can do mindfully to think about just nature for that one moment where you're not throwing it in the trash can, you're throwing it in the recycle bin. You don't want to become obsessed with purity. You're never going to achieve it. At the same time, you don't want to completely give up and give in to just hedonistic enjoyment of everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do.
Well, but that's the thing. Sometimes.
There are moments for it.
Yeah.
But that's not your compass. That's not your base compass.
You should be able to enjoy yourself in a Captain America movie, absorbing all the propaganda they can throw at you. You should be able to enjoy an indie comic that criticizes everything about Captain America and Disney. And I think that's just how it has to be. At some point, you don't stop trying, or you don't try to save the world. You just try to understand it.
Don't stop, won't stop.
I think that's I'm sorry, like I'm silent because I'm like actually like, not that I'm never processing what you guys are saying, but like I'm feeling the solace kind of come into me a little bit. It's you don't have to stop kind of asking for better of it, but you also, I am freed of constantly having to feel some level of bad about it. Like, yeah, your point about like perfect purity is not possible. So don't try to don't go to the other extreme, which obviously I'm not going to do that, but like, don't just go, I'm not living a proper life if I don't strive and try to hit that perfect purity of it.
And, in case I come across too cynical, I'm not saying don't think about it at all.
No, but
I'm not saying
you're presenting a really good counterpoint.
There's never anything you can do about it, because just the act of being conscious of it, of being introspective, without going too far into it, like my conscious thoughts of recycling and, eating less meat and whatever that is, that informs who I am as a person. And I think more importantly in this case, something that I can personally do, which is to vote. Those morals that I hold, that knowledge that I have, informs who I vote for.
And that's the political level. I feel like that was what was, also why we tried to make it not outside of the scope of pop culture, is that like, my vote doesn't affect Disney or people making things. Do you want to finish your thought, and then we're going to I can jump to another company.
It's not that it's a vote. Well, no, so it is. So voting with your wallet, right? It goes back to what I said before. You're consuming Gravity Falls through Disney.
Yeah.
And then you go, I like what Alex Hirsch's doing. I'm going to go seek him out and vote with my wallet and give him specifically some money for what he's doing to support him because I like what he's doing.
That option isn't like, I support?
It's not always available.
I have Gravity Falls on Blu-ray. Did I support Alex Hirsch by paying money for that?
Right. Just like the person who I wanted to be president is not currently president. And so like I did what I could. I had to make some compromises. What we have now is better than the alternative. Like, yeah, it's still not great, but is it going the right direction?
Well, and I think what I would say is it doesn't, again, I would go back to, it's really not about saving the world. It's not about necessarily the most effective way to pay Alex Hirsch.
Victories don't feel like victories because a victory is the fight keeps going on. And ground is gained, but it's never just like you finally got what you wanted. But I guess I need to come to the terms is that's not how it works at all.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what we need media for, so that we have that place we can go and live in that utopia of here's an end goal and we're going to get there and now we're all happy.
Yeah, I guess for both pop culture and outward, it's it's that idea of don't go to the other extremes, which I also feel like the middle path feels very apt to this podcast. I feel like that and conscious consumption are like the two lessons we always reach for the most part. And I don't think they're bad. I just think that's interesting.
At least we're consistent.
Yeah, true.
Say it's very Buddhist. You're talking mindfulness. You're talking middle path.
There you go. Maybe I got to learn how to be a Buddhist. I don't know.
I'll get you the 8 Noble Truths. I got some light literature in my backpack.
I got the belly
Maybe
on
this will turn into Kermit's pop culture Buddhist zone.
Today we'll be meditating to the sweet sounds of nature.
Which path do we go down? Speaking of Buddhism and paths and whatnot. I guess we did the thing where there is an artist involved that has a vision. how do you then process of the artist made a great work in company, the artist leaves just by virtue of doing other things or just time going by, years, decades later, company picks up thing and animates the husk.
Well, this is where I told you guys back when we were talking canon, I don't recognize Disney's authority with Star Wars. There are certain things, like there will never be Lord of the Rings without Tolkien. There, in my opinion, Disney didn't bring back Star Wars. They brought back something else that looked like it.
And I'll reiterate what I said, which was I'm going to enjoy those things on their own, as they exist, if they're good or bad. And, I'm going to use my own judgment whether I put that into my own headcanon or not, whether or not it fits within that. And so in the same way, if an artist says some really messed up stuff about trans people at some point, and I really enjoyed the book that they wrote, the multiple books that they wrote about some little boy who did magic, as a, example, I'm still going to enjoy those books that I read. And I'm, when I have a conversation about that particular artist, I'm going to express how disappointed I am in them.
Okay, I have a couple examples of this, but there's one that, I feel on a very almost personal level. So you two are a little older than me, so I don't know how much you did or did not grow up with SpongeBob.
I know SpongeBob.
Okay. I have been saying somewhat jokingly, somewhat serious recently that, the people, the kids of my generation and around it, I don't know where the lines are particularly. I've never really sat down to think about it. SpongeBob is... The phrase that I've been saying comically is, SpongeBob is ours by blood right. We literally had a phrase when we were in college and we were out to dinner that always, without fail, at least one person would just, over the course of things, make a SpongeBob reference, and we'd go, there it is. Somebody would make a SpongeBob reference in a joke in a class, and the entire class would erupt, and the teacher would be so confused. It is boiled into us. It is inescapable. More than any other show, it is a part of our DNA. Have I watched it in ages? No, but it's there. I feel like it's like The Simpsons for a generation a little bit older than me, where it's just
yeah.
You're familiar with the SpongeBob picture memes online, right?
There's a lot of them.
Right, there's a lot. Did you know that about 75% of them are from a single episode of SpongeBob?
I did not know that, but it doesn't surprise me. Because there's just... So here is the layering in. So the creator... if I screw this up, I'm going to be so cross with myself, because it'd be really disrespectful. If memory serves, the creator's name is Steven Hillenburg.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Who has since left us. He has passed in the last year or more.
It was longer than a year.
Okay, gosh darn it.
Well, we skipped the whole year, so
don't beat yourself up too much over the Hillenburg lore.
No. I want to do proper respect of, because this is literally this is a show that is clearly important to me. Even if I don't feel strong, it is just written into me and just gives me an instant ability to connect with other people around my age. It's a thing that is there. It is just a moment of connectivity that wouldn't be there otherwise, more than anything else. So he explicitly said before he died, please do not make this child spin-off of this. Explicitly asked it. And within barely a few years of him being cold in the ground, Nickelodeon went directly against this man's wishes. The thing that, the man who made them, the juggernaut of, the 2000s, that made them so much money hand over fist. He was barely cold, and they instantly went across his wishes to make a spin-off he explicitly asked not to make.
Interesting. I didn't know this.
Oh, yeah. Is it airing yet?
It is. It's been airing. I've never even seen it. It's Camp Cora, I believe. Yeah. It's a prequel when they're kids with Patrick. I don't even know. We come back to the artist thing of the human element of this man who made this thing that is very important to me and a lot of people I know had his express wishes as a living being on this planet. Please don't do this. I've made you enough money. They made so many seasons of SpongeBob. I don't even know if it's done or not yet. Ungodly amounts of money has come in from SpongeBob. Could you please not do this one thing? And it's not like they waited 10 years or 5 years. They barely waited a year when he died to do that. And it's that's like, I can't wrap my head around, like, that's messed up. Like,
But-
that is such a disrespect, but like, I don't have any power over that.
Well, but also, would SpongeBob exist without Nickelodeon?
But like that, this is where we come to, and in this case, literally where the corporation is puppeting the thing that people have a connection to in this like freaking Five Nights at Freddy's with the exoskeleton inside of a human being. Like it is like a dance macabre. Like it's just like like I know, okay. This is a show about pop culture. At the end of the day, people are starving places. All of this doesn't matter. But there's like a certain way, because that's the whole thing, is like you make connections with these things. You make connections with these characters that a single human and other people help bring to life. And to see them puppeted around. I feel like actually, Ben, you calling upon the continuity thing is like a really good thing with like Tolkien and Disney with Star Wars. It's like a really good example of like you grew up, you make connections with these things. You know, because genuine artists make genuine art, even if they were inside these things, which we've already learned to accept in this episode. But just to see it, like again, in this case, literally he died, like a corpse reanimated just for money.
Well, yeah, and in this case, it's not even morally gray. It's obviously disrespectful.
Yeah.
And
like, that's gross.
it is gross, but I would go back to... So you mentioned this in conjunction with how do I justify consuming products? Are you consuming other Nickelodeon products? Was this a straw that like...
No, but this is a company I cared about, and I thought I want to think better of them, and actually have a really good segue from that when we finish this segment. Because, and again, we go back to the Disney thing. I know there are good creative people inside that company, and I also, as we've clearly just stated, and in my tone and the way that my voice changed, like, I have a lot of respect for Steven Hillenburg for making this thing that's really important to me in my generation, that, like, literally brings me joy on a daily basis via memes and just connecting with people over it. Again, it's not like I talk about it, but, like, it's just, like, it is just the fabric of my generation. Like, and
So do you feel like this back taints some of the SpongeBob stuff you enjoyed, knowing that it came from this somewhat toxic environment?
I think it further jades me against companies moving into the future, and the world is a little less bright because of that. That I can see, like, that this is, like, it's seeing this happen and knowing it can only get worse from here.
What if I told you that you really shouldn't put any kind of trust or stock into any large company?
You're very right.
Because
that is definitely a lesson I need to internalize, because I'm bad at it.
There's plenty of companies that do good things here and there, but like at the end of the day, especially if it's a publicly traded company, their sole purpose is to make money. And they're going to do what they think is best. And by they, I mean like a whole bunch of executives, because it's never just a single person, almost never.
Well,
and they're going to do what they need to do to make money off of whatever they can, whatever fits into their wheelhouse.
Well, to an extent, you never step in the same river twice. So you can love...
Super philosophical today.
I know, you're in my corner now. So
I've exited my zone.
the companies make a very conscious effort to engage with consumers on a personal level. That's key thing of advertising. Tell them a story, make them see you as a human. That's what they do, but they're not. And the people change, and it's very possible. I don't know the Hillenburg situation. I mean, that's a very short turnaround, but usually the reason they wait 10 years is not out of any like mourning period or anything like that. It's usually because it takes about 10 years for the guard to change at the top of the company, and the new guys don't care anymore. And so
I get that.
That's just part of it. Is there are so many companies that like, Blizzard.
Oh, Blizzard is very justifiably on fire. Yeah, Blizzard Activision, isn't it? Yeah, that is a whole situation, and like that one's easier because I didn't really like any things they made before, and I extra can stay away from them now and go, that is a burning ship, and I hope it burns to the ground.
Well, me too, but I was, the Blizzard of my youth no longer exists.
No.
I played Diablo 2, I played World of Warcraft, and yeah, a lot of those guys who were there at the beginning are part of the problem, don't get me wrong, but
that company holds those things that were a part of your childhood now and puppets them without feeling.
I just have to let them fade into the past because they're not mine anymore. They're not the thing I knew. They're not this unchanging rock.
But does that mean that if they put out a new game that's really good, you are going to make a moral decision that says, I am not going to play that?
For me personally, with Blizzard, I have done that. Until Blizzard makes some major changes, I am not going to play Diablo 4, for example, which was a game I was looking forward to. And I understand the taking things on their own merits, and I don't think anybody who does play Diablo 4 is wrong. It's just, for me, I can't look at it now without seeing that Cosby Suite crap.
So I think that's, that goes back to what I was saying, is like where I just sort of ignore that, because I was just thinking while you were talking about that, there is media that I have started to consume that had something in it that made me uncomfortable morally, that I stopped consuming because of that. And I feel like it's pretty easy for me to disconnect a company from a thing that I'm consuming. But when I'm in it, when I'm consuming that thing, the actual content is right there in front of me. And so that is very much like if I'm reading a manga and they're, treating a trans person in a terrible way, and it's obvious, like it's written to be that way.
It's endorsing it. It's
right.
Not, yeah.
Then that makes me feel gross and I stop, But if the artist doesn't like trans people, but didn't put anything in their
work that
reflects that, then I don't.
You're really coming back to Just Kidding Rawlings a lot.
Well,
I mean, it's a good comparison point. We talked about her a lot when we did our episode on that.
Well, and I totally get where you're coming from, because there is absolutely no logical consistency to my beliefs. Probably every article of clothing I'm wearing right now is made in a sweatshop, and probably every product I'm using at the moment has a net suffering greater than playing Diablo 4 would. But for whatever reason, I saw it, I related to it, I connected as a human being to that story, and I can't unsee it. And it just connected Diablo 4 with that crap in my head, and I can't break it.
And in relation to, the whole point of this conversation in working through this, that I think it's important to keep in mind, though, your lack of playing Diablo 4, you choosing not to do that, isn't hurting you in any way.
No.
It's not. No. It's not going to cause you to go into depression or anything like that. And so, as a moral choice, frankly, it's pretty easy to make. And I guess that's sort of the thing, is like, do we make the hard moral choices? But in terms of media consumption, a lot of the time, it's very easy to make that choice to say, I'm not going to consume this thing because it's not going to harm me to not consume it.
Well, and I also don't make the choice to not play Diablo 4 to hurt Blizzard. I don't, like you've said, I don't think I can hurt Blizzard by withholding my one purchase. It's just because those events connected in my head, every time I would fire up that game, I would think about this stuff that happened, and I'd think, I just don't want to do it. And so that's where I said it's that act of recycling. I know it's not doing necessarily what needs to be done to save the planet or to end abuse or anything like that, but it's just my own little ritual with it.
So, do you think that any part of what we've discussed here changes the way that you're going to consume media?
Yes. I don't think I'm done unraveling this. I think I have a little thread to what might be another episode.
Hashtag content.
Yeah. No, I mean, and again, this is another thing actually I want to talk about, and it leads it well, and I don't want to say it too much because we tried this one with just kind of me having a topic and going on it, and I feel like so far at least it's worked better. Maybe this will get cut. I don't know.
I'm not going to cut anything.
Am I feeling too much as a human being to be upset when that I see these husks of things being popular and making money? Because it makes me feel like I'm crazy.
I think it's fine to speak against it, to say why you feel that way. But then I think for your own mental health, you kind of need to let it go. Because
let's also not forget that you have a platform with which you can express your dissatisfaction.
But everybody, like, that is also another my thing, and this we are definitely flowing into another episode topic that I've been wanting to do. But like, when everybody is just it's like there's a reason that I don't want this podcast to almost ever be we watch something and now we're talking about it. There is 50 billion people on the internet doing that from all different directions. There is nothing I'm going to say on a particular work that's going to have any particular insight that either you wouldn't get anywhere else or that you couldn't get from yourself. This is why I like this podcast being about pop culture as a whole, that you can go around and pick and choose, because otherwise I don't have the own creativity that it's just like we watch some episodes and it's mostly just I like this, I didn't like this. Like, I find that kind of approach to something meaningless.
But isn't this
it's
particular
popular
episode doing just that?
No,
Even
I'm
though
I'm not talking about we literally sat down and we watched episode 3 of whatever we watched, and we're going to go over the episode and we're going to tell what happened, and I'm going to point out the things that I liked and the things that I don't. Because the market is flush with those, I don't find they have any. I have no desire to do them myself. I have an active,
yeah. But
I actively never want to do that because it is me just screaming into the void.
But isn't the act of saying that you are dissatisfied with these certain aspects of media in general, isn't that bringing that to a wider group of people, expressing? Yeah,
but I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I'm coming down.
And you're not doing a simple review. You have a problem with the philosophical concept of making something that the creator specifically asked you not to make. Because like you said, you haven't even watched it. It's not about whether or not it's good or bad.
No, it has literally zero to do with it, because I know it's not made from a place of wanting to make something special. It's we want money, we're going to animate this corpse so we get paid.
Yeah.
And there's no substance behind it. It's literally just the thinnest plywood to get it off the ground to content, money.
Well, kind of going back to this is a little bit of a detour, but I just want to ask, how do you feel about copyright? How long should a copyright last?
I do not have an opinion on it. I don't know. I know you've talked about it, and we're also running a little out of time on this podcast, so this might be another episode, because that's definitely something we can get into, because I know you have a lot of views on it as somebody who's in literary work, and even outside of that.
The reason I mention it is because it goes towards letting it go for me. It is inevitable that somebody out there somewhere is going to dig up these corpses and reanimate them in a way that the creator would not approve.
Okay, I want to have this conversation so bad because I have points I can go from that. So
next time on Pop Culture Talk Zone.
You know what?
Do a part 2?
It'll be next time. It's not necessarily a part 2. So next time we will talk about copyright and the idea of things that are like the like lifelines of things, and things being picked up and things being put away, and things being respected even if they're different, and things being disrespectful. So I think that's actually a very good jumping off point for next time. So I feel like to wrap this up, we'll state the lessons we have learned. Wheel of morality, turn. Tell us the lessons that we have learned. I mean, we always come back to the conscious consumption, but this idea now that Ben has presented me of the middle path of either of the extremes is not a good, healthy choice to do in life. I can still be frustrated, but I shouldn't let it consume me. I'm not sort of selling my own self out to do these things and be a part of these things, and kind of taking that to heart as I go forward. I don't need to stop being frustrated, but I don't have to be frustrated, and that'll hopefully help me cool down a little bit. So I I had a fantastic time. I love doing these because even if sometimes some of the fire still burns, some of it goes out. I chill out. I gain some new level of clarity. That's why I like these sort of shotgun approaches where it's not like, hey, this is the topic we're talking about. I feel like it gives you a lot more in the moment feelings and reactions to things, and I feel like that's where the true heart of battle lies, the true heart of the cards. You can find me on this very podcast channel, if that's what we're reviewing us, Ramble Rouser, anywhere you get your podcast. Also, these can be found in video form on my friend's YouTube, Keeping Friendship Magic, and also his podcasts, which are very good. And I believe you can find me on Twitter, where I post barely nothing on Kermit_D_Grog on Twitter. Very One Piece in that D spot. So that is where you can find me. Ben, where can we find you?
You can find me primarily hosting the Words About Books podcast. You can get it wherever podcasts are. And you can find me on Twitter at WABpod.
And Brad, Professor Isekai Sensei-Sama.
We are going to be doing an anime club podcast at some point in the near future, whenever that actually happens. And if you have questions that you'd like Isekai Sensei-Sama to answer on that podcast, you can email isekaisensei-sama@gmail.com, and we'll probably have that linked in a description somewhere because that's difficult to spell.
It's a good idea. I'll try to make sure I get that in the description when I put this up. So that is me, Kermit the Grog.
Me, Ben.
And me, Brad, Isekai Sensei-Sama.
Going out into the world, thinking about the media we consume, and taking the middle path. And we will catch you next time with part 2 about copyrights and media longevity. And I will see you then. Ooh, that's good. Getting the Foley work in there. Ooh, Okay, here's the big business here. And ooh. Oh gosh. Why do every time you do this it fizzes all over my freaking carpet? I'll do the thing where we go, oh man, we turned Andrew down too. We should have turned him down lower, because when I go into host mode, it gets a notch louder unintentionally.
I think you're going to be good. I gave you some extra room.
Thank you. Are we ready?
I'm ready.
I'm going to try a new intro.
Oh,
totally
before we
screw
start,
myself over by calling my shot.
Ben doesn't want a cool name, and you're not going to call me Sensei.
No.
I'll call you Sensei if you want me to call you Sensei. I was about to tell Andrew to host me, Daddy.
No, give me the funky outer. Give me the funky outro. No, I didn't tell a joke. Give me the funky outro. Woo!
I want to take the middle path by vibrating violently between both extremes.
Like the Flash.
I'll consult the Buddha.